December 22nd, 1961. It was about 3 days before Christmas. We had everything all decorated. We had the train under the tree. We had a Lionel train that we put under the tree every year. It had a Santa Fe engine. We had also a coal car, black smoke steam engine replica type thing. We had a cargo car, box car, and a milk car. The dump car or coal car would dump its load at the loading dock, and the milk car had a little man in it that would throw out milk cans on the loading dock. So it was lots of fun to play with. We also had a little orange, what they call a utility truck car, and that car would go zipping around the tracks until it hit something like somebody's fist. Rosemary, Jim, and I all enjoyed playing with the train because it only came out Christmas time. We would make tunnels out of the presents and play with the train and have all kinds of fun. So that train was under the tree, and we were having fun with it. And then it came time for Rosemary and Jim to go to a party, a Christmas party. And so my mother took them 20 minutes across town to the Christmas party, to their high school Christmas party. Now, I was in 9th grade, but I had to stay home and go to bed because I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to deliver papers. So when my mom got back, she started fixing donuts, but before those donuts could be ready, I had to go to sleep. She got the grease heated and about ready to start cooking the donuts when she got a phone call from Rosemary saying the party is over and we're ready to come home. Now, my mother quickly grabbed her purse and turned off the stove and headed out the door. But what she didn't realize is that when she turned off the stove, it went beyond off, which meant it was sitting on the highest heat. And so soon after she got going down the road, the grease, which was already hot, burst into flames. And it started flaming and heating and burning the wall, and furthermore it heated the ceiling tiles. Now the ceiling tiles were fireproof, but what we didn't know was that when the ceiling tiles get about so hot, they break down and they emit a highly combustible gas, which quickly caught fire and spread fire throughout the whole house. So soon there was smoke billowing out of the house that anybody could see. And the fire department was called. I was asleep in the back room, and nobody knew I was there. But somebody in that crowd looking at that fire hollered out, "There's a boy in that house." So the guy next door went and got a log and a fire log, and he broke the window, my bedroom window. In the process of breaking the window, he cut his arm and had to go get some stitches. The 2 college kids in a house next door heard that there was a boy in the house, so they came and they took turns jumping through the window. Now, the smoke was so thick that they could not see, and it was so thick they could not breathe. So what they had to do was jump in, hold their breath, and feel around in that bedroom to find the body they were looking for. As one of them turned to jump back out the window, he stepped on my leg. I had in my sleep crawled down off the bed and in under the bed with my feet sticking out. And so when he stepped on my leg, he knew that was the body that he was looking for. And he grabbed me and handed my 90-pound body out to the other college student, and then followed me out. As soon as about the time they got me out of there, the fire department arrived, and they immediately took over and started resuscitation. Just as they were getting ready to take the mask off and declare that I was dead, my sister says I started coughing as they removed the mask. And I remember hearing somebody say, "Get back, folks, get back, get back. This guy's got to breathe. He's got to be able to breathe." Now, at the same time as that was going on, of course, my mother, when she was coming down the street, she saw the fire lights long ways down Main Street, and she said to Rosemary and Jim, she said, "It looks like the Dairy Freeze is on fire." And as she got closer, she became more concerned because she was slowly realizing that it was not the Dairy Freeze, it was our house that was on fire. She abandoned the car in the front of the house, big parking area, and ran to the front door to go in, and the fireman stopped her and said, "Ma'am, you can't go in there." And she said, "My son is in there." And he said, "Well, there's a boy out back. I don't know his condition, but you cannot go into that house. It would be fatal for you to go into that house." So she came around back, and she got there just as they were putting me in the ambulance. I was shivering. I was so cold and shivering. Everybody thought I was shivering because I was in shock. And so they loaded me into the ambulance, and she climbed in the ambulance with me. And as they're about to shut the door, the fireman says to her, how did anybody know he was in the house?" And she says, "I don't know." And so we took off. Now when we got to the ambulance, or when the ambulance got to the hospital rather, the nurse started in to get me ready for checking me out. And we found the reason I was so cold is because between each of the 3 blankets that they had wrapped me in, there was a layer of snow, which now was ice. So the main reason I was shivering was because I was packed in ice. But as she was working, the nurse looked right at me and said, "The biggest cause for a death of people that have been resuscitated from a fire or from being suffocated is pneumonia." She said, "You have to cough the soot out of your lungs and spit it out. Or if it stays in the lungs, it causes pneumonia." So, okay, I had to cough and spit the soot out of my lungs. And I was busy doing that for a long time after that. But when the reporters interviewed all the different people that were at the fire, they never could find out who called out, "There's a boy in that house." And all the people that might have known did not realize I was in the house until they heard, "There's a boy in that house." So I've always wondered who shouted. We went back to a house. A neighbor invited us to be at their house and to spend the night at their house. I never got to see the house at that time because I was reacting very much to the smell of smoke, and especially the smell of wood smoke. We were invited by a sweet lady named Corey Youngward to come out to her place and stay as long as we needed to. And so we went there. When we got there, she lives in a forest, actually, an orchard. And she's got a beautiful white house that was built many, many years ago, very old house. We pulled up into the driveway, and she came out and greeted us with her soft, smiley face and her gray, almost white hair. And then we went in. She said, "There's cookies and milk in the nook." She had a breakfast nook. And so, of course, the 3 of us, 3 kids, went for the cookies and milk after we hung up our coats. And my mom and dad are there, and we're all talking. And she said, "This is a big farmhouse with lots of room. You are welcome to stay here as long as you need to or want to." And my dad said, "Oh, we don't want to impose upon you." And Mrs. Youngward said, "Oh, you won't be imposing. You can help me get ready for the Christmas party on Christmas Day, and you can help me take care of the house, and help me take care of things." And so my dad said, "Okay, we will stay until we can find a place to rent." Now, after she took us for a tour through the house, showing us the bedrooms and the various rooms. Now, Jim and I had to sleep downstairs. Rosemary got to sleep upstairs in a bedroom. My mom and dad slept in a bedroom upstairs, but we had to sleep down by the furnace. So after we got all done, Dad collected us together down there in the basement and said, now look, Mrs. Youngward has opened her house to us. You obey her in whatever she asks you to do. And matter of fact, don't wait to be asked. You volunteer. Do not take her generosity for granted. Do not abuse her kindness. And so we were always very eager to do whatever we could to help Mrs. Youngward. We got along pretty good. Christmas Day was different than I've ever had before or since. That Christmas we learned that it's not about the presents, because we didn't have any left, but it was about the people you know and the people you love, and it's a time of getting together with family and sharing love, and the presents should just be an expression of that love. You know, on the first Christmas, God shared his love by sending his son. The Bible says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. That's what Christmas is really about. It's not about the things, but about the people. And we learned that in a very real way that Christmas. After Christmas, my dad had to go back to work. My mom went to the house with Rosemary and Jim. I was still coughing up smoke, so I wasn't going near that house. They brought home a whole carload of clothes and stuff that they had gotten from the fire. Most of the clothes, by the time they got the smell of smoke out of them, they were just a pile of threads. But a few garments and things they were able to save. My mom had looked at the furniture and she figured that we could sand the wood and replace all the fabric and the cushions and make them like new. And so we collected those and we worked on them. We rented an apartment, not an apartment, a house, a few months later, and moved all our stuff, moved to there. On the first, I think it was the first or second day that we were at Mrs. Youngward's house, Rosemary at dinner time said, "Can we call you Grandma Youngward?" And Mrs. Youngward said, "I would love to have you call me Grandma Youngward." So Grandma Youngward became our adopted grandmother from that time on. And I will never forget that Christmas because I learned some very valuable lessons. And I've never, ever figured out who said, "Who is that boy? There is a boy in that house."